Joe Biden's spending is revealed. Walmart is getting backlash for prices, and Trump's tariff plans are finally in play. This one is going to be a doozy, so just stick with me for this video. Let's go ahead and jump into it.
Let's start right there with Moody's downgrading the nation's credit rating, and they do cite the debt. I want to read you a little bit of what Moody's says. It says, quote, if the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is extended, which is our base case, it will add around $4 trillion to the deficit over the next decade. Several Republicans, Mr. Secretary, are citing similar concerns. Does the president's tax bill need to do more to address the nation's debt and deficit?
Well, Kristen, first of all, I think that Moody's is a lagging indicator. I think that's what everyone thinks of credit agencies. Larry Summers and I don't agree on everything, but he said that when they downgraded the U.S. in 2011. So it's a lagging indicator. And just like Sean Duffy said with our air traffic control system, we didn't get here in the past 100 days. It's the Biden administration and the spending that we have seen over the past 4 years. We inherited 6.7% deficit to GDP.
This is so silly that he's even having to justify all of this, as if Trump had caused all of this to happen in 100 days. Biden didn't have 4 years, and these people were backing up Biden like crazy, a man who is now, by all accounts, apparently just not even close to fit for being a president. And it is just so ridiculous to me that he's even having to explain this, because the craziest thing was Democrats immediately, the moment that Trump won, they were like, well, why isn't everything better? It literally, the first few days, I saw articles about people like, well, Trump didn't fix the economy. Trump didn't fix the economy. Or the tariffs come out like a week later. Well, these tariffs didn't work. The tariffs didn't work. It is, give it a rest. Just give it a second. I mean, seriously, having to justify it this quickly is so silly.
Determined to bring the spending down and grow the economy.
Fair enough, but under President Trump's first administration, he added $8 trillion to the nation's debt in his first term. So there's plenty of blame to go around.
No. But let's review. We were in the rescue portion of COVID. The Biden administration was in the recovery portion. And Kristen, it would have been, if not for Senators Manchin and Sinema, who were no longer in the Democratic caucus, it would have been 4 or 5 trillion more.
It did include the tax cuts as well. But let me ask.
Well, and also it literally had to do, I believe half of that $8 billion had to do with COVID relief. So it's just unfair to say something like that. Kristen is just so bad at interviewing. I've seen her on other episodes of Meet the Press, and anytime there's a Trump official or anyone Republican, she just absolutely cannot agree with them, will not allow herself to just be open a little
Walmart, bit. This big news from Walmart. It says it will start raising prices on its consumers, Mr. Secretary, as early as this month due to the tariffs. Now, President Trump out with a very stern warning on social media saying Walmart, quote, should eat the tariffs, adding the company made far more than expected last year. Is the president asking American companies to be less profitable?
I was on the phone.
I do have to say, I actually don't agree with the president on them eating the tariffs. That's absolutely ridiculous to ask a privately owned company, no matter how much they made. I understand Walmart is the biggest company in the world. You don't ask a privately owned company to eat the tariffs on your behalf. Yeah, it's gonna have to be the fact that things are going to get more expensive because of tariffs, but that is in the long run to fix things, because we have already ridiculous tariffs from all of these other countries, and we are just trying to get to a point where everyone can be like, all right, we good? All right, let's just cut it. So that is actually the hopeful outcome. And it's just unfortunate. The reality is the world's not perfect. Biden put us in such a terrible place, and just the country is just in such a horrible financial state. That's what's going to happen to fix things.
With Doug McMillon, the CEO of Walmart, yesterday. And Walmart is, in fact, going to, as you describe it, eat some of the tariffs that just as they did in 18, 19, and 20. The other thing, though, that we are seeing, that Doug passed along to me, that with their consumer, the single most important thing is the gasoline price. And gasoline prices have collapsed under President Trump. So we are seeing that. The other thing that will happen, that is a direct tax cut for consumers. Then the transportation costs are also a big input. So let's see what happens. What you were describing was Walmart's earnings call. The other thing that companies have to do, they have to give the worst case scenario so that they're not sued. So, I think overall we are seeing a decline in services, inflation, and we saw inflation come down for the first time in 4 years.
Well, in my conversation.
And this is a really big thing as well. There has been a huge cut on inflation. Gas prices and everything are looking a lot better. I just have to be completely honest about that, at least around my area of South Carolina. So, yeah, there is definitely a noticeable relief happening, even in the last 6 months.
With former Vice President Mike Pence, he says he sees tariff as a tax. How far, Mr. Secretary, is the president, is the administration willing to go to prevent CEOs from increasing prices?
Well, I think what we're hearing here is that people are saying tax increases are inflationary. That when I was testifying before Congress last week, one of the congressmen said that, and I said, well, Congressman, if taxes are inflationary, let's cut taxes. So let's get this tax bill done, bring down taxes, which, according to this line of thinking, should be disinflationary.
But the Federal Reserve has said that tariffs are inflationary. Just to be very clear, you said you called Walmart. Is that what CEOs can expect, that the president, that other members of the administration will apply pressure to try to prevent them from passing?
And notice how she always spins it to the negative. As I said earlier in this, she cannot have a Republican on and have a reasonable conversation. She just took what he said. Hey, we have been communicating positively. We've been trying to work with these people. And she goes, oh, you're trying to work with them? Can you just can we understand that you're not just going to manipulate all of them? And it's like, we're not manipulating. You're strong arming them into doing it. It's like, no, they're just talking. This happens a lot. Walmart and companies like that are so big. Don't get it twisted. These kind of huge companies are in regular contact with people like the White House and these kind of things. So yeah, that's just what it is.
On these prices to CEOs?
I didn't apply any pressure.
I never implied he did.
Doug and I have a very good relationship, so I just wanted to hear it from him rather than second, third hand from the press. And again, as I said, this is all from their earnings call. And on an earnings call, you have to give the worst case scenario. Kristen, to go back to what you said, the Federal Reserve is not saying that tariffs will cause inflation. They're saying they're not sure and that they're in wait and see mode.
And that's absolutely fair to say. Wait and see, but also the biggest thing here is that it is ridiculous for them to be saying that that an earnings call, it would be anything other than, that's what it is for. Literally, they have to give the worst case scenario in case of how it's going. They have people investing. They need to tell them what's really
Let's
happening.
talk about the other big news that you were a part of a week ago in Switzerland, negotiating with Chinese officials. You and the administration lowered tariffs from the high rate of 145% to 30% for 90 days to allow talks to continue. But President Trump had said previously, and I'm quoting from him, China needs to make a deal with the U.S. We don't have to make a deal with them. So why did the United States back down?
Neither side backed down. Both sides realized that this, as I had said, was unsustainable. So we had the equivalent of an embargo, which is not what either side wanted. It was this constant tit-for-tat escalation. So both sides brought the tariffs down by 115%. So for 2025, we have increased tariffs on China by 30%. They have increased them by 10 on us. We now have a mechanism in place to continue talks.
Okay. On Friday, as a piece of this, President Trump, while he was on the foreign trip, said that countries should expect letters from you, from Secretary Lutnick, saying this is what the tariff rate is going to be. Mr. Secretary, does that effectively mean that these negotiations with other countries are over? And how high should they expect tariffs to go? Above 10%?
This means that they're not negotiating in good faith. They are going to get a letter saying, here is the rate. So
And by the way, part of the reason we set the rate is because we are literally the largest market with the most consumers. Like we have the highest purchasing power in the world. So yeah, they're set at our. That is just how it is. I don't know how to say.
I would expect that everyone would come and negotiate in good faith.
You expect that rate, though, that you would slap on any country that you think is not negotiating in good faith to be above 10%?
Well, I think that it would be the April 2nd level. Some countries were at 10%, some were substantially higher. And the negotiating leverage that President Trump is talking about here is if you don't want to negotiate, then it will spring back to the April 2nd level.
Former Vice President Pence told me it is time to impose harsh sanctions now. What say you, Mr. Secretary? Is it time to impose sanctions against Russia?
Well, I think we will see what happens when both sides get to the table. President Trump has made it very clear that if President Putin does not negotiate in good faith, that the United States will not hesitate to up the Russia sanctions along with our European partners. What I can tell you is the sanctions were very ineffective during the Biden administration because they kept them low because they were afraid of pushing up domestic oil prices.
Very quickly, how long for the timeline until you move to sanctions? Obviously, there's a call, but if the president doesn't feel like there's progress, how much time is he going to give them?
I'm not going to tie the president's hands in his negotiations.
And I think that is the absolute right answer. These are extremely high-level, high-stake negotiations that if he starts saying things, revealing possible secrets, just going out here, just shooting out at the mouth like this, that would be absolutely ridiculous and he could put us in a lot of trouble. And it's really crazy that she clearly knows that as well and is pushing him on these things that she knows he can't answer for the good of the country and for the good of the security, not social security, the security of the country. But thank you so much for watching, my friend. I would love to know what you think about this topic as well, and I will see you in the next video.